Okay, colleagues, you are welcome back once again. And like I told you last time, we'll continue from resistance to change within organization, basically. But before the within organization one, let us just speak about resistant to change individual. Can you see? Individual resistant to change in organization. What are the common things that will make individuals to resist change in an organization if we are introducing a kind of change within the organization? What can make someone to resist it? The list are all there. The first one there says individual resistance to change can arise from one, selective perception. Can you see? Selective perception. You see, like I always say that perception differs. The way two individuals may see things may be quite different. And like I mentioned to you previously, perception can be shaped by background, by culture, by belief, could be religious belief. If the change is not in line with your religious belief, there may be tendency for you to resist it. Can you see? Because your perception is quite different from the change initiator. Can you see? So on the basis of that, you may resist it. So selective perception. Certain individuals believe in what they want to believe. Certain employees believe in what they want to believe, and they don't like to change from that particular perception. They keep on anchoring on that particular perception, what they think is right, what they think they believe in. For instance, if the union have a perception or a belief, or some employees have a belief that management cannot be trusted at all, you see, it will be difficult for them to change. Whenever change is initiated, they may think management want to use that as a ploy to either sack them from work or to dismiss them from work or to reduce the number of workers. So in a situation where workers have a stereotypical perception about management, certainly change will be a difficult task to implement in such kind of organization. So selective perception is one of the impediments to change, or one aspect of resistance to change. What can actually cause resistance to change amongst individuals within a given organization. The next one there is habit. Can you see? Habit. They say habit is difficult to change. Can you see? Habit is difficult to change. Let's take, for instance, the issue of chain smokers. If you recollect, they say, nobody must smoke in all public places. But sometimes you see chain smokers, hiding to at least puff one of the cigarette, or whatever they want to smoke. You see, that is a habit that they cannot actually abandon. So the introduction of that policy that people should not smoke in public places, for them to still try do their best to hide, to smoke, is resisting that change, that new policy. You see, even in the plane now, in those days when I was a student in India, when we were flying, we used to fly with Ethiopian Airline to India. If we are flying, there's a section for smoking section where the smokers normally stay. I'm using a cigarette as an illustration. But now currently there is no section like that. Or there is no smoking in all flight. But at times you can enter the toilet of the plane, you'll still be perceiving the smell of cigarette. That is to tell you that there are still people who try to break that law in terms of not smoking in the flight. And that is a kind of habit. And they are resisting the change that have been introduced. The same thing also in the workplace. If you are used to a particular way of doing things, it becomes now a kind of habit, the way you do your things. Now, when something new is introduced that you must abandon that way of doing things, it becomes a kind of way that you will not be comfortable. That alone is resisting change. You see, resisting change. Because you have the habit, you may abandon that habit when the manager is in front of you. But when the manager is not around, you may still return to your habit. Can you see? So habit is one way individuals can actually, one aspect that will make individuals to resist change within an organization. Then another aspect or another thing that can make individuals to resist change is inconveniences or loss of freedom. Can you see? Inconveniences. If the change or the proposed change is going to inconvenience you, you notice that in fact it will put you on the spotlight, or there will be a lot of control, making you now to lose your own freedom in terms of how you do your work, or in terms of how you operate within the organization. Certainly, you will resist such kind of change. Can you see? You will resist such kind of change. So because it creates a kind of state of inconvenience in your mind, that certainly this change is not going to give me freedom to operate the way I used to operate, or something of that nature. For instance, if you were in an organization where people normally work in a flexible manner, then all of a sudden they introduce a rigid policy. You cannot go out to lunch. Before you go out to lunch, you must take permission from your manager, or whenever you report to your office, you sign a registrar. You can see that it become a very tight control. Maybe probably before you are used to entering into your office anytime, and you don't need to sign registrar even if you came earlier. But now when they initiate new rules where you have to sign in and sign out wherever you're going to, you see, that becomes inconveniencing. And of course, you lost your control, lost your freedom, So that can actually make an individual to resist such kind of change. Is that clear? Then another aspect another thing that will make individuals to resist change is economic implication. Economic implication. If the change will have an adverse economic implication for you as an employee, certainly you will resist such kind of change. If the change will lead to a cut in your salary, or the change may lead to redundancy and of course retrenchment, or the change may lead to a kind of withdrawal of some incentives or benefits that you normally get from the organization, certainly you will resist such kind of change. Is that clear? Then another aspect that will make an individual to resist change in organization is security in the past. Security in the past can make you to resist change. You see, if there's a particular job that gives you security, and you feel that, okay, somehow you are protected and you are working in your own comfort zone within that organization, certainly, and now they are introducing a kind of change whereby your security is threatened, certainly you will resist such kind of change. Can you see? And security pervades many things. It could also include your job security. You don't know if, in fact, you lose your job. Can you see? And also, it could also be a kind of change that will place your life in danger. Certainly, your security is not guaranteed. You will certainly resist such kind of change. And also, the last one there is fear of the unknown. Can you see? Every human being fear what they don't know. Can you see? What is the change going to bring? Can you see? Is the change going to stop me from walking? So naturally, people are anxious when something new is about to be introduced, most especially when it is a case of managers initiated change. Can you see? So people are anxious. So that fear of the unknown can make individuals to resist change. Is that clear? Fantastic. All right. We progress. Now we'll move to organizational resistance to change, or resistance to change by organization as a whole, which is, of course, everybody within the organization, including the management. Organizational resistance to change can arise from, the first one is organizational culture. You remember when I was talking about or lecturing about organizational culture, I made you to understand that culture can be a stimulant to change as well as an impediment or hindrance to change. So if we have a very rigid culture, certainly that may become a kind of, that can lead to resistance to change by the organization and members of the organization. And you see, they may want to stick to their own culture, most especially when it has to do with changing human behavior. Can you see? So people may want to stick to the culture that they were used to. And of course, because the top management and of course board of directors are kind of the owners or initiators of the prevailing culture, they may also resist the change that is coming. Can you see? It will look as if their legacy will be wiped out. Can you see? By introducing something new. So organizational culture can as well also be a kind of bring about resistance to change by organization as a whole. Then another aspect is maintaining stability. Can you see? Maintaining stability. Organizations at times also like to maintain the status quo. Can you see? Sometimes they want to maintain stability because they don't know what the change will bring. So they may resolve to, let's continue doing what works for us over the years. So there is tendency for people to want to maintain momentum instead of embracing something they are not sure about or they are not sure of. Can you see? So maintaining stability could be one angle that will make an organization to resist change. Is that clear? Then the next one is investment in resources. Investment in resources. Sometimes organizations must have committed huge resources in other areas. And now you are telling them about the need to change. So because they have committed a lot of resources into other areas, and of course, change needs big and huge resources also. So that can be a kind of, that can lead to resistance to change. Because change needs money, change needs resources, change needs huge capital. So if the organization have committed resources, invested resources in some other areas, and you are telling them we need to introduce this new thing, certainly they may not want to diversify so much their portfolio of resources or their portfolio of investment. So it may become a risk factor. So as a result of that, they may resist change also as an organization. Another thing that will also make an organization to resist change is past contract agreement. past contract agreement. So if an organization have entered into contract or agreement with other organizations and they have committed some fund in terms of that contract, certainly there is no way they can say, oh, we want to change things. Please, can you refund our money to us? Because those you have given contract must have started part of the job you assigned them to do. For instance, if it is a kind of outsourcing contract. So you cannot wake up and say, no, there's a change you want to implement. Give us back our money. So past contract can, of course, become a source of resistance to change by an organization. And of course, there could be some agreement that must have been entered between the union and the management of an organization in terms of retrenchment, in terms of introduction of new machineries, and in terms of other issues within the organization. So you cannot just tell union that you want to abrogate the agreement you have with them because of one reason or the other. So definitely past contract and agreements enter with union. It could be with union, it could be with the government, can make an organization to resist change. Then the next one is threat to power or influence. I think from my point of view, threat to power and influence could be one way. In fact, the middle managers normally resist change. For instance, you can remember previously most organization runs on hierarchical structure. Most organizations normally run on hierarchical structure. But in the current modern world, or currently, the emphasis now is on flat organization structure or borderless organization or matrix structure. So when an organization that was previously hierarchical now moved into the flat structure, certainly all the middle managers will be cut off. So they will become ordinary employees. So these managers are the ones that can actually resist change, because certainly their power have been depleted, their influence have been depleted. Can you see? That can become an organizational source of resistance to change. Can you see? So the resistance to change from organizational perspective can come in the form of organizational culture, can lead an organization to resist change, maintaining stability, investment in resources, past contracts and agreements, and threat to power or influence. And you see, that can make an organization to resist new changes in that organization, or change, to resist change that is coming to that such organization. All right, we'll progress. Now, managing change. How do you manage change? These are the checklists. In terms of management of change, these are the checklists. You can see checklists in terms of management of change. CMI checklist, managing change. In order to manage change, these are the things you need to do. Number one, agree the implementation strategy. There's a need for you as a manager to agree with subordinates and those that will be affected by that change on the implementation strategy of that change. How do we operationalize the change? How do we implement the change? How do we execute the change? That must be agreed with those that will be affected by the change. Because if you are just imposing change on them, certainly there will be resistance. But when there is a mutual agreement on how we are going to go about in terms of the change, certainly people will buy into the change idea. Why? Because they have entered into agreement, and you cannot wake up and say that, no, I don't agree again. Can you see? So if you commit people to it, it becomes their own product. Can you see? It becomes their own product, and they become full participant in the change that is about to be initiated. Is that clear? Then the next one is time frames. Can you see? There's a need to specify the time frame. Can you see? For the change. Now you can tell your members the change will take, say, between 1 to 6 months. Now they know this, we are out for this. Within the next 6 months, we are facing into a new strategy, or a new way of doing things, or new technology. Because if there's no time frame for the change, people will be confused. People will become suspicious. People will be anxious. How long are we going to continue in this? Can you see? So that will also create some challenges. Another aspect is draw up detailed implementation plan. There's a need for you to draw up details, implementation plans. There should not be a kind of hidden agenda or hiding anything. Draw up a detailed implementation plan. The fourth one, in terms of managing change, is set up a team of change champions. Set up a team of change champions. Those who embrace change, those who will support you in terms of the change, and of course, those who will help you to bring the change to pass, and those who will also help you to toast people who may be resisting the change to embrace the change. Can you see? So those are change champions. Number 5 there is establish good program management practices. Good program management practices. How do you manage it? The programs. Establish good program management practices. The 6th one is communicate clearly. I spoke about communication also earlier. Communication is the essence of management. So communicate clearly. Can you see? Clear communication will certainly convince people into what you are initiating. Can you see? Then the next one is ensure participation and help to minimize stress. Ensure that the decision is not just your own decision alone, but now you are bringing those that will be affected to participate in the decision. Can you see? Ensure participation and help minimize stress. And if you notice that people are stressed, you try your possible best to use all those stress mechanisms we spoke about in chapter 3 to reduce the level of stress when you are initiating change. Then the next one is personalize the case for change. Personalize the case for change. Can you see? So that is to say that you must be able to show them, move the case for change. Tell them why it is important to change, and of course, you yourself that is initiating it. Be the change that you want people to be. Can you see? Be the change that you want people to be. So you must personalize this, you must add it, you must reflect that change. Can you see? You cannot tell subordinate, don't urinate there, because you have stopped people from urinating there, and one early morning the subordinate sees you urinating at the same place. Can you see? So you have not personalized it. You have not internalized the change. Because you are breaking the rules. Can you see? So you must personalize the case for change. Then number 9 there is be prepared for conflict and manage it effectively. Like I told you, conflict will always be there in organization. The important thing is that you should be able to manage it, so that it doesn't move to dysfunctional conflict. Functional conflict is good. Can you see? It allows different divergent ideas, divergent perspectives to come on board. But when conflict is too much in an organization, it can become dysfunctional conflict when people begin to attack themselves. But as far as conflict is related to the work to be done, it is considered as functional conflict. All right. Then the next one there is motivate your employee. Motivate them. Motivate them. Reward them for the good work done in terms of the change. Both monetary and, of course, non-monetary reward or incentives may be needed in terms of motivating employees. Can you see? Create an atmosphere that will boost morale. Use all the motivation strategies that we spoke about in terms of Maslow's theory of motivation, in terms of Herzberg's theory of motivation, and in terms of theory Y and Z of motivation. That is Vroom theory of motivation. Is that clear? Great. Then develop skills. If you want people to change, if you are introducing new technology, train them how to use the technology. Develop them. You cannot introduce technology and people don't have the skill to operate it. You have to train them. Training and development is very important there. Then number 12 is maintain the momentum. Can you see? Maintain the momentum. That is in fact, of course, holding on to the new status quo. Don't let people withdraw. Can you see? Make sure that it stick. Make sure that the new change that has been introduced remains. Can you see? By monitoring it, by making sure that people are adhering to the new rules, and by making sure that people are using new technologies that have been introduced into the system. Can you see? Then the 13th one, the 13th point there in terms of managing change is monitor and evaluate. You monitor what is happening and, of course, evaluate whether we are meeting performance expectation. Can you see? Because in all these things, we must have our target. Now you look at the actual performance and evaluate whether you have been able to meet the target or exceed the target, or there is a shortfall in terms of the target. Is that clear? Fantastic. All right. I just want to check what is left there. Okay. I'm just cutting it slowly so that we can actually be able to upload them on YouTube. So that is that in terms of managing change. I think we will continue from where we stop within the next 5 minutes. Thank you very much and have a wonderful evening once again.